Welcome to KoalaGains. In this session, we are going to talk about one building block of the travel, leisure, and hospitality sector: travel platforms and membership models. This block is the digital front door of the travel world. For many of us, the trip now starts on a screen, not at an airport check-in desk. We open an app, search dates, compare prices, and only then think about planes, hotels, or cruises. Inside this block, we group four types of businesses. First, online travel agencies, or OTAs. These are the large marketplaces that pull together flights, hotels, car rentals, and activities into a single interface. Their main job is convenience and comparison. Industry data suggests that OTAs already intermediate a very large share of global travel bookings and roughly 2/5 of total travel spend that passes through digital channels. They sit right at the point where intent is converted into a booking. Second, corporate travel and event management platforms. These are B2B tools and agencies that manage business trips, travel policies, meetings, and events. They sit on top of a very large business travel wallet. Global business travel spending crossed about $1.3 trillion in 2023 and is on track to move towards $2 trillion and beyond over the next few years. If you look at the long-term chart of global business travel spending and growth, you can see a steady climb from about $900 billion in 2007 to a forecast of roughly $2 trillion by 2028, with a sharp dip in 2020 and a strong rebound afterwards. Third, private lodging and membership travel. This includes alternative accommodation platforms, vacation clubs, and subscription-style products. Some follow an asset-light marketplace model, simply connecting hosts and guests. Others own or lease inventory and monetize access to that inventory plus perks. Fourth, specialty and expedition travel. These are niche tour operators and expedition cruise providers that offer high-touch, small group, or specialist itineraries. Expedition cruising is one of the fastest-growing parts of the cruise market, with passenger numbers growing at double-digit rates and the market expected to more than double between 2024 and 2032. Across the wider TLH ecosystem, this block mostly sits downstream, routing demand. It owns the user interface, controls search and booking data, and then funnels travelers into airlines, hotels, cruises, and local experiences. At the same time, platforms are in a tug-of-war with suppliers. Each side wants to own the primary customer relationship through apps, loyalty programs, and memberships, and to stop the other from disintermediating them. Let us now talk about business models and economics. Most of the block is asset-light and fee-based. Capital is invested in software, data, sales, and marketing, not in aircraft or hotels. For consumer OTAs, the core model is commissions or take rate on transactions. They earn a percentage of each booking: room nights, flights, packages, or activities. Flights usually carry thinner margins. Hotels, alternative stays, and experiences are higher margin categories. Because OTAs do not own most of the underlying assets, their fixed costs sit mainly in technology teams, product development, brand building, and performance marketing. The key drivers of unit economics here are: 1. Total gross bookings on the platform, 2. The take rate by category, and 3. The mix of repeat or app-based traffic versus paid acquisition. At large scale, this can become a high-margin, operationally leveraged model, but it is very sensitive to marketing efficiency and to how much bargaining power big airlines and hotel chains have. If you look at the bar chart on the global online travel agent market, you will see that this segment alone is expected to grow from a little over $900 billion in 2024 to well above $1.1 trillion by 2029, which works out to mid-single-digit annual growth. That gives the large OTAs a steadily expanding pool of transactions to work with. For corporate travel and event platforms, the revenue mix is a bit different. They earn per-trip fees, per-attendee charges for events, and sometimes incentive payments from suppliers. These businesses are still relatively asset-light, but they are more relationship-driven. Capital is tied up in sales forces, implementation, and workflow software. Economics depend on how much travel volume runs through the platform for each client, how sticky those clients are, and how successfully the platform can cross-sell analytics, duty of care, and expense tools. The membership and subscription side adds another layer. Vacation clubs, subscription passes, and Prime-style tiers introduce recurring fee income on top of transactions. If the operator owns resorts or inventory, the balance sheet becomes heavier and starts to look closer to traditional lodging. If it purely sells access and perks, it stays closer to an asset-light model. Here, the key levers are recurring membership revenue, churn, and the economics of perks and breakage, points or credits that are issued but never used. In specialty and expedition travel, operators often pre-buy or control capacity, cabins on ships, lodges, guides, and permits. That increases asset intensity, or at least capacity risk. The upside is higher gross margins on curated itineraries. Returns depend on load factors, yield per passenger, and disciplined growth in what is still a relatively small but fast-growing niche. Across all four models, three broad industry drivers stand out. First, the volume and mix of travel. How many trips take place, how long people stay, and how much is leisure versus business. Business travel is still normalizing after the pandemic shock, while premium leisure and adventure travel are growing faster than the average. The second driver is channel and digital behavior, the share of bookings made online and via mobile apps. During COVID, online travel spending slumped to around $225 billion, but it has since rebounded sharply. By 2023, online travel sales had grown into roughly a $600 billion market and accounted for close to 70% of global travel and tourism revenue. In other words, online is now the majority channel, with offline still meaningful but steadily shrinking. Mobile sits at the heart of this shift, driving both research and booking behavior. Third, supplier dynamics. Major airlines and hotel chains are pushing their own websites and loyalty apps. In some mature markets, direct digital bookings can exceed 70 to 80% of online bookings. That caps how much value intermediaries can capture and forces them to show that they are bringing incremental demand, not just rerouting customers who would have booked anyway. Regulation and embedded fintech form a fourth layer. Rules around refunds, consumer protection, data privacy, and credit products like buy now, pay later shape how platforms design products, manage working capital, and handle risk. From an investor's point of view, the attraction of this block is obvious. Asset-light models, network and data effects, recurring relationships, and global scalability. The risks are also clear. Dependence on a few digital traffic sources, pressure on commissions as suppliers push direct, vulnerability to sharp demand shocks, and growing scrutiny of pricing transparency, data use, and embedded credit. Let us turn to macro, cycle, and behavior. This block is cyclical, but the cycle looks different from airlines or hotels. When global growth slows, financing becomes tight and companies cut budgets, business travel and events are trimmed quickly. Corporate travel platforms then see lower transaction volumes and weaker fee pools, even when they still have contracts in place. When real household incomes rise and people continue to prioritize experiences, discretionary leisure can grow faster than GDP. Weekend city breaks, unique stays, and expedition trips all benefit. Platforms can then steer customers towards higher value inventory, ancillaries, and insurance, which supports revenue per trip. The business travel side is also very uneven across regions. If you look at the donut chart on business travel spending by region, you will see that Asia-Pacific now accounts for around 40% of total business travel spending, North America for about 27%, Western Europe for around 24%, and the rest split across Latin America, emerging Europe, and the Middle East and Africa. That regional mix matters because recovery speeds and corporate travel cultures differ greatly between these markets. When big shocks hit, pandemics, wars, airspace closures, or system-wide IT failures, bookings can collapse and cancellations spike. Revenue then falls quickly. Platforms usually react by cutting marketing and discretionary spend, and their balance sheets are tested more by refund liabilities and chargebacks than by the cost of idle aircraft or ships. Once restrictions lift and sentiment improves, however, online platforms tend to be early beneficiaries as pent-up demand comes back through digital channels. Behaviorally, this block is extremely sensitive to trust and user experience. If platforms hide fees, mishandle disruptions, or provide poor customer support, switching costs are low, and users can quickly move to rival apps. Cash flows may be more volatile year to year than in some other sectors, but they are less tied to heavy capex and can often recover faster when demand returns. Now let us look at what is structurally new, especially through a Gen Z lens. For younger travelers, social media is now the top of the travel funnel. A very high share of Gen Z use social platforms for inspiration, and a large majority book through mobile apps and digital wallets. They look for unique, shareable experiences and visible sustainability credentials. They are willing to overspend on trips they believe will be memorable and worth posting about. This means platforms that integrate well with social discovery and have strong mobile user experience become structurally more important. On the product side, subscriptions and memberships have gained traction: OTA Prime tiers, travel clubs, and all-you-can-travel passes. Embedded fintech is now standard. BNPL at checkout, stored value wallets, co-branded cards, and loyalty points. These tools can improve conversion and capture more economics, but they also introduce credit, fraud, and regulatory risk. Technology is also shifting the planning experience. Large platforms are rolling out AI trip planners and conversational agents that can assemble itineraries across flights, stays, and activities in seconds. The platform can then nudge travelers towards certain suppliers or bundles. Niche and community-based clubs are growing too, especially around adventure, wellness, and educational travel, where content and community lead to repeat bookings. All of this is slowly turning the block from a set of pure transaction brokers into relationship platforms. The more data, engagement, and financial linkages a platform has, the more bargaining power it has versus airlines and hotels, but also the more it sits in the spotlight for regulators and consumer expectations. How might this block look in the future? From a generational point of view, for Gen Z, this block is likely to become an always-on infrastructure layer. Discovery flows from social feeds straight into mobile-first platforms that handle everything: inspiration, comparison, booking, payment, and in-trip support. Gen Z is comfortable with subscriptions, digital wallets, and BNPL. They have low tolerance for friction and hidden fees, and higher sensitivity to ethics and sustainability. Platforms that are transparent, mobile native, and good at personalization should benefit. For millennials, the focus is a bit different. This cohort is juggling careers and families. They care about time saving and value optimization. They rely on reliable reviews, clear total trip cost, and loyalty benefits that fit school holidays and work calendars. Over time, they are more likely to consolidate around a small number of trusted ecosystems. For them, the block stays central to leisure and pleasure spending, but with greater emphasis on predictability, hassle reduction, and integration with other tools like calendars, budget apps, and corporate policies. Looking at time horizons. Over the next 1 to 2 years, the overall shape of the block should look familiar. OTAs and platforms remain the default starting point for many trips. Commissions and service fees are still the core revenue engines. Competition for traffic via search and app installs stays intense. We should see a gradual decline in desktop-only journeys and intolerance for opaque fees and painful refund processes. Mobile app penetration, in-trip servicing, embedded payments, BNPL, and basic AI assistance should keep growing. Over 3 to 5 years, platforms are likely to deepen their role as orchestrators of end-to-end journeys. Inventory relationships still matter, but differentiation shifts further towards personalized bundles, dynamic packaging, and context-aware recommendations. Integration with adjacent workflows, expense management, HR systems, and collaboration tools should become more important, especially on the corporate side. Manual, phone-based servicing gradually shrinks. Multi-product memberships and tiered loyalty models that blend travel, lifestyle perks, and financial services gain weight. Over 7 to 10 years, the need for trusted intermediaries is unlikely to disappear. Travelers will still need someone to compare options, manage risk, and handle disruptions, even if the interface is an AI assistant rather than a website. What should fade is the role of fragmented, small, non-digital agents in mainstream segments and pure ad-driven travel sites that do not genuinely improve planning or risk management. What should grow is a smaller number of deep ecosystems where travel sits alongside payments, communication, and other lifestyle services, combined with stricter regulation on pricing transparency, data use, and embedded credit. That environment may favor scaled, well-capitalized, compliant platforms with strong network effects, and make life harder for small, thinly capitalized players. Finally, let us bring this back to the KoalaGains investor lens. For long-term investors, the key questions are: how resilient are the unit economics if growth slows or advertising costs rise? Where does bargaining power ultimately sit, with the platforms that control demand or with the suppliers that control physical capacity? Can individual businesses convert booking growth into durable, high-quality cash flows after we account for supplier pushback, regulatory changes, and new discovery channels, such as social media and AI? The most attractive models are likely to be those that are asset-light, data-rich, and membership-driven, that acquire customers in a disciplined way, and that deliver genuine value to both travelers and suppliers. At the same time, we have to be realistic about the headwinds. Direct booking, regulatory scrutiny, and technological disruption, including AI tools from large tech platforms, could all compress the economics of weaker intermediaries. In other words, this block offers powerful economics and global scale, but not every platform will earn those economics. The job for us as investors is to distinguish between platforms that are simply in the flow of travel and those that have durable relationships, genuine differentiation, and the balance sheet strength to ride out the next shock in the travel cycle.